Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me wish you a good day and also tender my apologies for not being present physically. But I'm very grateful for this opportunity to just say a few words to you, which I hope will be of some value in the deliberations that are going to take place in this extremely important conference. We have recently brought out the synthesis report of the IPCC, which was released on the 2nd of November, and this clearly lays out some very clear findings, a few of which I'd like to place before you for your consideration. It's very clear that human actions are affecting the climate of this planet, and most of the warming that has taken place since the middle of the last century is extremely likely to have been the result of human actions. And when we use the term extremely likely, we are associating a probability of 90% or more. The second point I'd like to make is the sea level is increasing, bodies of ice across the globe are melting, extreme events are increasing in intensity and frequency, particularly heat waves and extreme precipitation events, and projections for the future clearly indicate that if we don't mitigate emissions of greenhouse gases, then sea level rise by the end of the century could reach as much as 0.98 meters. That's almost a meter. That's something I suppose a location like Hong Kong needs to be very concerned about. I also want to mention the fact that in this report, for the first time, we have provided substantial details on what climate change and human actions are doing to the oceans of this planet. For instance, most of the heat that was generated as a result of climate change between 1971 and 2010, 90% of it has gone into the oceans. And that has led to heating of the oceans right down to the level of about 700 meters. Even more serious, perhaps, is the fact that since the beginning of industrialization, whatever carbon dioxide emissions have taken place, 30% of them have gone into the oceans, as a result of which the oceans are acidifying. And both these factors have very serious implications for marine life and marine ecosystems. Now, what is it that we can do? We have to make cities resilient. If there are going to be more heat waves, if there are going to be more extreme precipitation events, both in terms of intensity and frequency, clearly towns and cities will have to cope with this effectively. But I want to mention one very important fact, that while human society has to adapt to the impacts of climate change, whether you look at sea level rise, extreme events, or for that matter impacts on agriculture and human health, what's going to be crucially important is to see that globally we reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases as rapidly as possible. And to keep the temperature increase by the end of the century to below 2 degrees Celsius, we will have to reach a point where emissions of greenhouse gases by the end of the century become zero or go into the negative range. Now, all of this will require a global effort of unprecedented dimension, and I want to also end by highlighting that if we don't take action early enough, then the costs will go up substantially. And there are, of course, costs associated with mitigation actions, and particularly stringent mitigation levels, but these costs are nothing compared to the cost of inaction. And also, if we delay taking mitigation actions, then these costs will become much higher, and even some of the technologies that we would need to bring about effective mitigation will perhaps not be available before the end of the century. So the choices are very clear. The climate is affecting all our habitat across the globe. There are cities which are located in coastal areas. There are cities that are located by the rivers, particularly in deltas. All of these are going to be very vulnerable, and therefore we have to take in hand adaptation measures on a very serious level, and most importantly, we have to bring about mitigation of the emissions of greenhouse gases globally, because that clearly is a global challenge, And I hope the sooner we do it, the more would we have the opportunity of stabilizing the climate of this planet. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity, and I hope you have a wonderful set of discussions, and I hope at the end of it you would be able to spread awareness and a resolve, create a resolve by which human society can tackle this most difficult and most serious of challenges that we are facing in an effective and timely manner. Thank you very much.